For weeks, the football world had been asking the same question. Is Cristiano Ronaldo finally finished? At 41 years old, the Portuguese legend arrived at what is likely his final World Cup, carrying more pressure than ever before. Portugal's opening match against DR Congo had been disappointing. A 1-1 draw. A quiet performance from Ronaldo. Critics questioned whether Roberto Martinez should continue building the attack around a player entering the final chapter of one of the greatest careers in football history. The debate exploded across social media. Some fans demanded that Ronaldo be benched. Others argued that Portugal would be stronger without him. For the first time in years, it felt like the football world was preparing to move on. But if there's one thing Cristiano Ronaldo has done throughout his career, it's proving people wrong. And tonight, against Uzbekistan, he may have delivered one of the most important responses of his career. The setting was Houston. Portugal entered the match under pressure. Another poor result would put their World Cup campaign in serious danger after the draw with DR Congo. They needed a win. And more importantly, they needed a leader. Just 6 minutes into the game, that leader arrived. A dangerous ball was delivered into the box by João Cancelo. Ronaldo reacted instantly. One touch, one finish, one goal. The stadium erupted. And with that goal, Ronaldo didn't just give Portugal the lead. He made history. The Portuguese captain became the first player in football history to score in 6 different FIFA World Cups, a record that may never be broken. Think about that for a second. His first World Cup goal came back in 2006. 20 years later, he's still scoring on the biggest stage in football. An entire generation of players has come and gone. World champions have risen and fallen. Football itself has changed. Yet Cristiano Ronaldo is still here, still scoring, still breaking records. And tonight, he wasn't finished. Portugal continued to dominate possession. Uzbekistan struggled to cope with the movement of Portugal's attacking players. Then came another moment of brilliance. Nuno Mendes stepped up for a free kick. The Uzbek defenders expected one thing: a Ronaldo strike. Instead, Portugal fooled everyone. Mendes fired a low effort into the net, and suddenly Portugal were 2-0 ahead. The pressure that had surrounded Portugal before kickoff began to disappear. But Ronaldo wasn't done writing the story, because the man who had spent the last week listening to criticism was preparing an even bigger statement. As the first half continued, Portugal kept pushing forward. Bruno Fernandes found space. A pass was delivered. Ronaldo made his move. And once again, the finish was clinical. Goal. 3-0 Portugal. Brace for Cristiano Ronaldo. The reaction inside the stadium said everything. Fans jumped from their seats. Teammates surrounded him. And suddenly the conversation had completely changed. Hours earlier, people were asking whether Ronaldo should start. Now they were watching him produce one of the best World Cup performances of his late career. This wasn't just about goals. It was about timing. The greatest players always seem to respond when the pressure becomes unbearable, when everyone doubts them, when the headlines turn negative, when the world starts counting them out. That is when they remind everyone who they are. And tonight, Ronaldo did exactly that. At 41 years old, in what may be his final World Cup, with criticism coming from every direction, he delivered when Portugal needed him most. By halftime, Portugal led 3-0. Ronaldo had 2 goals. He had silenced the critics, and he had broken yet another record. But the story isn't over yet, because the second half still remains. Can Ronaldo complete a hat-trick? Can Portugal turn this into a statement victory? And can this performance become the moment that changes their entire World Cup campaign? The second half will decide that. 45 minutes remained. Cristiano Ronaldo had already made history. But sometimes, the most important part of a comeback isn't the response itself. It's what happens next. Because football fans have seen moments like this before. A player scores early. The headlines start writing themselves. And then the second half arrives, and the story fades away. This was Ronaldo's chance to prove that this wasn't just a good half. This was his chance to remind the world why he has survived at the highest level for more than 2 decades. As the players returned to the pitch in Houston, the atmosphere had completely changed. The pressure that surrounded Portugal before kickoff had disappeared. The tension was gone. The criticism was gone. And for the first time in this World Cup, Portugal looked like a team enjoying their football. Uzbekistan knew the match was slipping away. A 3-goal deficit against one of the tournament favorites was already a mountain to climb. But Portugal showed no signs of slowing down. The midfield continued controlling possession. Bruno Fernandes dictated the tempo. João Cancelo kept pushing forward. And every time Ronaldo touched the ball, the crowd reacted. Because they knew they were watching something special. Not just a footballer. A footballer making history. Every sprint, every touch, every chance. It felt like the entire stadium was waiting for one more magical moment. A hat trick. One more goal. One final statement. But even when the third goal didn't arrive, Ronaldo's influence remained everywhere. This was no longer about individual numbers. This was about leadership. The same player people wanted dropped from the starting lineup just days earlier was now leading Portugal's response when they needed it most. And then came another breakthrough. Around the hour mark, Portugal attacked once again. The pressure became overwhelming. A dangerous situation inside the penalty area turned into disaster for Uzbekistan. The ball found its way into the net. 4-0 Portugal. An own goal. An unfortunate moment for Uzbekistan, but a perfect reflection of how dominant Portugal had become. At that point, the result was no longer in doubt. The only question remaining was how big the victory would become, and perhaps even more importantly, what this performance meant for Cristiano Ronaldo. Because this wasn't simply a match against Uzbekistan. This was a response to every criticism that followed Portugal's opening game. After the draw against DR Congo, many people argued that Ronaldo was holding Portugal back. They pointed to his age. They pointed to his lack of mobility. They pointed to the fact that football eventually catches up with everyone. And they weren't entirely wrong. No player escapes time. Not Pelé, not Maradona, not Messi, and certainly not Ronaldo. But what makes the greatest athletes different is that they learn how to adapt. When they lose speed, they improve positioning. When they lose explosiveness, they improve intelligence. When the body changes, the mind becomes even stronger. That is exactly what Ronaldo showed tonight. He didn't dominate through pace. He dominated through movement, timing, experience, instinct, the qualities that only come from spending a lifetime playing at the highest level. And as the clock continued ticking down, Portugal added one final piece to the puzzle. Late in the match, Rafa Leão got his moment. A brilliant finish. 5-0 Portugal. The perfect ending to a night that began with doubt and ended with celebration. The final whistle blew. Portugal 5, Uzbekistan 0. A complete statement victory. A performance that instantly changes the conversation around Portugal's World Cup campaign. And at the center of it all stood Cristiano Ronaldo. 2 goals. A historic record. And perhaps the most important performance of Portugal's tournament so far. Think about everything that happened over the last week. One disappointing draw. One difficult performance. Thousands of critics questioning whether he should even be starting. Then one match later, the same player becomes the first footballer in history to score in 6 different FIFA World Cups. That's why Ronaldo's career has always been different. Most players are remembered for what they achieve when everything is going right. Ronaldo is remembered for what he does when everything is going wrong. When people doubt him. When people write him off. When people decide his story is over. Because somehow, that is usually when he produces another chapter. At 41 years old, nobody knows how much football Cristiano Ronaldo has left. Nobody knows if this World Cup will be his last tournament. Nobody knows whether Portugal can go all the way and lift the trophy. But after tonight, one thing is clear. The reports of Cristiano Ronaldo's decline were greatly exaggerated. The man who has spent more than 20 years breaking records just broke another one. The man many believed was finished just delivered the performance Portugal desperately needed. And the man who has built an entire career around proving people wrong has done it again. This wasn't just a victory over Uzbekistan. This wasn't just another World Cup match. This was Cristiano Ronaldo's comeback. And if history has taught football fans anything, it's that writing off Cristiano Ronaldo is usually a very dangerous mistake. The king was questioned. The king responded. And the World Cup just got a reminder that Cristiano Ronaldo is not done yet.